All right, let's talk about the All right, let's talk about the automobile accident that brings us here today. Do you recall the date? It was September 4. Approximately what time of the day? About 2:30 in the afternoon. What was the day of the week? I believe it was a Thursday. I'm going to ask you to think about some things that might be hard to remember, so take your time. Do you recall what you did the night before this accident? I don't remember what I did. Did you drink any alcohol the night before? No, I didn't. Do you ever drink alcohol? On occasion. How about how often? Not very often. Drinking does not fit in with the kind of work I do. Approximately what time did you get up that morning? You mean the day of the accident? Yes, sir. I don't remember exactly. I usually set the alarm for 7 o'clock. What was the condition of your health that day? It was excellent. Do you remember whether or not you had a headache that day? Not to my recollection. Any dizziness or vertigo? No, ma'am. Did you have a cold or flu at that time? No, I did not. Were you on medication that day for any condition? No, I was not. Do you wear eyeglasses? Yes, I do. All right. What was your destination when the accident occurred? I was going back to the agency. You were on the expressway, is that correct? That's correct. What direction were you traveling? I was traveling south. Were you wearing your seatbelt? Yes, I was. Were you wearing your eyeglasses? I always wear my eyeglasses. Were your headlights on? I don't remember. What was the weather like? There was a light rain. How was the visibility then? The visibility was good. Were you listening to the radio in your car? That I don't remember. Do you smoke cigarettes? No, I don't. Did you ever smoke? No, I never did. Were you drinking a can of soda? No, I was not drinking or eating. Was anyone in the vehicle with you? I was alone. Were you distracted in any way just prior to the accident? I do not recall being distracted. How heavy was the traffic at that time? It was heavy. A lot of cars were almost bumper to bumper, so to speak. What lane of traffic was your automobile in? My automobile was in the exit lane. You were going to get off the expressway and go west. Is that correct? That's correct. What happened next? All of a sudden, the defendant's automobile comes up. I don't understand what you mean by that. He was in the left lane and he moved over to the right lane. There was a pickup truck in front of me, and the defendant's automobile suddenly pulled in front of the pickup truck and immediately slammed on his brakes. Approximately how long was he in the exit lane before he slammed on his brakes? A couple of seconds, I cannot say exactly. There was no signal or anything. He just suddenly pulled in front of the pickup truck and immediately slammed on his brakes. All right, what happened after that? Then the pickup truck slammed on his brakes and I slammed on mine. It was an automatic reaction, it all happened very fast. When you saw the defendant's automobile change lanes, how far was your vehicle behind the pickup truck? I'm not sure. Give me an estimate. Approximately 3 or 4 car lengths. Once the car changed lanes, you are saying there were approximately 3 or 4 car lengths between you and the truck? About that. Do you agree with me that drivers should keep a proper lookout to see what the vehicles in front of them are doing? Of course. Do you agree with me that drivers should keep an appropriate distance between the vehicles in front of them? I believe so. Do you agree that drivers need to carefully watch the traffic around them? Officer, please state your name for the record. My name is David Johnson. Do you have a middle name? My middle name is Patrick. What is your current position with the police department? Chief of police. How long have you been the chief of this city's police department? For 11 years. What was your rank before you became the chief of police? I was the deputy chief for 2 years. How long have you been employed by the police department? I've been with the department for 25 years. What is the extent of your formal education? I have a master's degree in police science. Are you aware that this hearing concerns the shooting death of a man named Mark Hill? I'm aware of the nature of these proceedings. Have you had an opportunity to discuss the entire matter with the city attorney? Yes, I have. I talked to him this morning. Did the city attorney tell you what we would be doing this afternoon? He went over it, yes. Have you ever had your deposition taken previously? Yes, I have, numerous times. Then I won't repeat the basic rules. I'm sure you have heard them before. Please tell me how you originally learned about the shooting death of Mark Hill. I'm not sure, but I may have received a telephone call at home. You weren't out of the state at that time, were you? I don't really recall. We have had several shootings, and I don't recall specifically how I originally learned of it. All right. But now that you mention my being out of state, I believe I was. I was attending a meeting. Do you remember being down south? Yes, I do. It's coming back to me now. I was in Alabama. Do you remember who might have called you and informed you of the shooting? I have the distinct impression that it was the deputy chief. He was in charge when I left. Is it standard operating procedure within your department for someone to notify the chief when an officer is involved in a shooting? That's a regular procedure, yes. Is this true when there is a death involved, or is this only true when a police officer is involved? Well, if an officer is involved in a shooting and if no one was injured, his captain will report it to me. On the other hand, if someone was killed or injured, the officer himself will report it to me. Why is that, sir? That is simply our procedure. It helps me stay on top of serious matters that involve my officers. In this case, however, it was the deputy chief who called you. Isn't that correct? That's because I was out of town. I don't believe the officer knew where I was. When the deputy chief told you of this matter, do you recall what details he might have related to you? No, I don't. Did the department take some disciplinary action with regard to the officer who did the shooting? I am not aware of any disciplinary action. As I recall the facts in this case, the department relieved the officer of his active duties for a week or two with pay. Is that your understanding? I am not aware of that. Let me tell you that the discovery in this case thus far indicates that the officer took a week off with pay and immediately following the shooting incident. Can you advise me what would have prompted such action? I have no idea what you are talking about. I have no recollection of that. I would have to go back and review my memos if there are any, and I would have to talk to the individuals who were knowledgeable about that. Did you ever meet with the officer in regard to this matter? I think I spoke to him, but I can't remember if I spoke to him over the phone or if we talked in person. The discovery in this case shows that the review board conducted a hearing. Were you aware of that? Yes, I was aware of that. And that after the review board filed its report, you met with the officer and advised him that he had acted in accord with standard procedure. Do you recall that? It is very possible. It depends, however, on whether I spoke to him on the telephone or whether I spoke to him in person. All right, as far as the shooting is concerned, are you aware that there was a purported witness to this shooting incident? You will have to refresh my recollection. I don't remember who the witnesses were. Was there a gentleman who lived next door to the house where the shooting occurred? He resided north of the residence where the shooting occurred. Was he an eyewitness? He was the only witness I know of. Did you review his statement? I believe I did. I reviewed all the reports. Did you review a rather long document in which there were a number of questions and answers? I believe I did, but I do not remember it at this time. All right, who makes the decision as to whether or not a police officer has acted properly with respect to a shooting? After all the facts have been looked at during a special process, I make the final judgment whether or not the shooting was within policy and whether or not the officer should go to counseling. Tell us about the special process. After a shooting of this sort, a board of review is convened. It is their job to look at the facts and determine whether or not the shooting was within policy. To whom do they report their findings? They report to me. Have you ever examined the credible evidence yourself and then disagreed with their findings? I'm not positive, but I don't believe so. There may have been one time when I did not agree with them. Does this review require that the officer be present? What do you mean? In other words, is it just like a hearing? Yes, that's correct. The officer must personally appear. Is he put under oath? I don't believe so. Is a court reporter present during these proceedings? No, sir. Are the proceedings recorded by any means at all? No, they are not. Can you explain why not? The board is strictly an advisory board. It is a chance to have the board members look at the facts and suggest a course of action. They know what is going on in the department and they know the rules. Were you aware that the witness's version of how this shooting incident occurred is quite different from the officer's version?